Hi, we're here with Angela today, and she is with the company Empower Her Money, where she helps people like, oh, Angela, you explained it. Go ahead. What was it you do?
Yeah, I help empower female entrepreneurs and helping them with their business and teaching about money.
That's what I was. Yeah, because you had said that in the last coffee we were at, that community and coffee we were at, and my brain just wasn't accessing that information very quickly.
No problem.
So, Angela, what is your big burning question for today?
My big burning question for today for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's talk about bringing in into money
Wait, bringing intuition. You cut out there for a second. Bringing intuition,
when it comes to your money.
your money, your money, or your client's money.
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. So one of the things that comes to mind is that money has energy. And the more you want, the more you have to raise your vibration to the level that you're looking for. So,
Hmm.
the way that you do that, the way that I do that personally in my own life, and the way that I coach my clients on how to do that is how to create space, how to create spaciousness for money to come in. The more the amount of money you're looking for, the more resistance comes up,
Hmm.
right? We put a barrier up when we think we're having too much, partly because of the false beliefs we have about money,
Hmm.
and partly because of the inheritance we receive from our family about thoughts for money. Like, I feel like a family saying in your house that popped in for me is money doesn't grow on trees, right?
Hmm.
Right. There's a scarcity mentality of you can't just go out and pick money the way you can go out and pick a fruit off a tree if you had the fruit there, right? If you had the
Hmm.
fruit. And I feel like for you, there's been a lot of work that you have done the work. Like actually see you out in like a field hoeing. You've done the work to unhook from some of that teaching that you've had from your family, that your dad was basically like, it's not a job unless your hands are dirty. And your mom was like, I do work, but my work isn't worthy of being paid because I'm in my kitchen and I'm in my house and I'm cleaning and I'm raising children, is the way that I'm picking up with your family. And so for you, it's like, no, I have worth and I have value and I have things that are worth getting money for. Like, my time is valuable and people will supply that.
Hmm.
And so I'm thinking. I feel like I feel like the resistance is big for your clients though, and they don't always know how to break down their barriers around it, right? Like, I always say I get resisty. Like when I start stepping into my big vision, right? When I start stepping into the big moment. So here, I'm just going to tell you a story, Angela, and this isn't really a part of the reading, but like it is, but it's not. So like you get to do with it what you want. So when in 2019, I met with a woman who was a Reiki specialist, and she was like, read this book. And she gave me The Law of Attraction. And after I read The Law of Attraction, I then moved forward to Ask and It Is Given, both by Esther and Jerry Hicks. And I started to apply the principles in those two books. And I started to do things. I started to go out and, like, I had a day in New Hope where I just went shopping and bought things I couldn't even afford. I went and I pretended like I had all this money, and I, like, opened the door for spaciousness, and I was like, this is all gonna just flow out and be great. And I one day was sitting in a chair at my, like, and so like basically I don't want to give too much away, but like I was having a moment where I was like, this specific thing can't happen in order for me to get the money. Like, I was like, my dad can't die for me to get the money. And then the resistance came up, the walls came up. Like, it immediately, it just changed the atmosphere. It was no longer wide and open and spacious because I had said, this is how it can't happen. And I'm going to hold on to how it can't happen. I'm going to say how it has to happen. I'm going to put parameters on it. And so one of the things I've learned is you just have to, like, the hardest thing to do in like intuition and manifestation is release and allow. and
Hmm.
just allow it to be what it's going to be and not put
Mhm.
parameters on it and not say it has to turn out this way. Like
Mhm.
if you have this big event coming up, to say, well, it won't be successful unless it makes $10,000,
Mhm.
right? Well, then are you blocking $10,000 then? Are
Hmm.
you saying like is resistance coming up and being like it will only be successful if it's, well, what is successful, right? And being open to like, I don't know what successful looks like, because the second you say it's not successful unless it makes $10,000, you've actually put a cap on it and said it can't make 15. You're
Right.
saying it can't make 20 because you've said it's only successful if it makes 10, and the universe goes, okay, we hear that.
Hmm.
And so by opening up the door of saying anything is possible, right? I'm asking for 10, but I'm open to receive however much comes. I know this event could be a $50,000 event, but I will be grateful for 10.
Hmm.
I will be grateful for 5. I am grateful for the 7 people who have signed up. I am grateful for, right? And the gratitude, the attitude of the attitude of gratitude, right? The attitude of gratitude creates openness and spaciousness for anything to happen. It creates a snowball of what is going to show up.
Hmm.
And so breathing into that, right? For you, breathing into that space of what are you grateful for? And I feel like you do have a small gratitude practice, right? Like in the sense that like you kind of give it a head nod every now and then. You're like, I am grateful for these things. I am, but it's not necessarily something that you do all the time as a perfect practice, right? As a practice of like a daily. Are you with me? I'm afraid I'm losing you a little bit. Are you still
Yeah,
connected?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, and so a daily gratitude practice opens up the flow of money, because this is what Esther Hicks says. She says, if you don't love your house right now, why would the universe give you another house? If all you do are grousing about all the things that are wrong with your space, why would the universe give you a different space?
Hmm.
And so if you're looking for a bigger house, or you're looking for like, start finding the things you love about the house you're in right now. Like,
Hmm.
I love the stairs. I don't always love the stairs from my bedroom to the bathroom, like 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't love those stairs. But like, I think they're so cute, right? Like, regularly, I'm like, I love these stairs. Would it be really nice to have a master bath attached to my bedroom? Yes, it would be really nice. But you know what? These stairs are really cute. I do think they're great. Not 3 o'clock in the morning, but most of the time, I love these stairs, right? So you like find the things that make your space a little quirky and great, and then you blow that up, because if you have a little bit of gratitude and you're able to blow that into something bigger, then the universe sees that gratitude and says, yes, then you can handle bigger.
Hmm. Love that.
Um, I just heard the words client list go through your head, or my head. I heard them go through my head. So maybe it's something that's just like, how do you grow that client list? How do you get your name out there, right? How do you help people know that Angela Duncan is somebody who can help you figure out the finances on stuff, right? And help you figure out how to finance the big thing that leads to the next big thing that means that you don't have to finance the next big thing, right? Because you've already like done the work. Hmm. And I feel like money is sort of that dirty topic that people don't like talking about. It kind of has this stigma on it where you're like, we don't share what something costs, and we don't share how much we're willing to pay. We don't share what's in our bank account. Like, this is something that we just don't talk about because it's sort of a taboo. And so I feel
Hmm.
like two things happen. Like, let's say you're in a coffee shop and somebody says, hey, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I help women figure out their money, right? two things happen. One, I feel like there's a bit of resistance on your side where you're like, I don't want to talk about this because this is awkward. And there's a bit of like, how is this being received on their side of like, ooh, she just talked about money openly, right? But
Mhm.
the less resisty you are about your own topic and the more comfortable you are just saying, you know what, this is it. Like for me, my mom gets super uncomfortable when I tell people I'm an intuitive. Like she gets like awkward and she's like, don't tell him you do that. That's weird. So I recently had a surgery and I had to meet up with a surgeon to get like my gallbladder out. No big deal. It's fine. But when we were with the surgeon, he was like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm an intuitive. And he goes, what does that mean? And my mom, little 79-year-old woman sitting next to me, gets all bristly. And I'm like, Mom, I read energy. And now he's like doctor mind, right? And I bump into plenty of doctors daily because I work in a hospital part-time. So like I bump into doctors who are all doctory about these things, right? So I know what he's going to do. Mom, however, is like, this is embarrassing. And so I don't care. I don't care what people think of me when I tell them I'm an intuitive. I don't care, right? If you think I'm a ditz, if you think I'm a whack job, if you think I'm a weirdo, you know what? My whole goal is to encourage people and to help people feel better. If that
Mhm.
makes you uncomfortable, I'm terribly sorry you're uncomfortable, that my desire to make you feel good makes you uncomfortable,
Right.
right? And so an unabashedness, right? Like I think of it like Chris Duncan has this thing where he tells people what's your goal. He's like, what's your goal? And he has people write it down. So like if your big goal is $1,000,000, put your $1,000,000 on a piece of paper in front of you. And then back up from there. What's your first step? My first
Mhm.
to get $1,000,000. What's your second step to get $1,000,000? And then what's your third step? And then the $1,000,000. And then he says, after you get the $1,000,000, he's like, put another step out there because your subconscious will sabotage you if you get too close to the end of your goal. And like put the
Mm.
next goal out there. So the closer you get to your goal, your subconscious will start to sabotage you because it'll think it'll die if it hits the goal. So give it another goal once you get there. So like if you have 1,000,000, then my goal after 1,000,000 is 23 million. Why? Because it's a friendly number for me. It's a no rhyme or reason. It's just a number. It's just a number. So my number is 23 million, right? So I have the million now. Where does the 23 come from? I have no idea. But that's what I'm working towards now because that feels friendly and happy to me. And then
Mm.
23, after 23 is 46 because it's just 23 doubled. And once I have
Mhm.
46, it's 100 because 46 doubled is so close to 100, it might as well be 100 million,
Mhm.
right? And so when I'm standing at the very beginning and I don't even have the million yet in my head, I don't even have the million, or maybe I have the million and I'm working towards the 23 million, I put on 23 million. And what does 23 million feel like? So when you're standing in the coffee shop, you're not presenting Angela Duncan, Empower Her Money. You're presenting 23 million.
Mm.
Right? And so when somebody says, what do you do? And you say, I help women figure out their money. You're not saying, I help women figure out their money problems. You're not saying, I help women solve money finances and get out of debt. You're saying, I help women figure out how to make $23 million. And
Mm.
with that energy, it's a very different energy. If you're saying,
Yep.
I help women figure out debt, there's a heaviness to the word debt. I help women
Mhm.
figure out their money. There's a heaviness to I help people figure out their money, right? But if you say I help women like figure out their money, and in your head you're like, there's 23 million in there for you. I help you find the 23 million that you're working towards. It has a very different energy than I help women figure out their money, and you're thinking about the debt and the finances and the house they want to buy that they can't afford. It has a very
Right.
different energy to it. And so if you're standing in the mantle of I'm help women find their 23 million, while I'm finding my own 23 million and Kim is finding her 23 million, right? And we're all in this together finding our 23 million. Again, it's a random number. It doesn't matter the number. It's whatever
Right.
number feels friendly to you, and 23 feels friendly to me. And so if when you go and present yourself in any situation and you know that you are carrying literally, like you imagine that you're Santa Claus filled with bags of money on your back that you are helping women find, it has a very different feel in a coffee shop. Wherever you are, whatever platform you're standing on, whatever stage you're on, it has a very different energy feel than when you're talking about finances and debt and loan consolidation and mortgages.
Very true.
Right? And so when you present in a coffee shop with knowing that you're holding, you can imagine them, $23 million is just like hanging out on your back and you're waiting to give it to somebody, right? And you're waiting for it to be found by you and by everybody else. It has a very different emotional feel to it. And you will no longer feel that, I can't say this. Because instead you're saying, I help you solve the problem. Or not even the problem, because it's not a problem, right? Because there's 23 million in my back. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Are there any other questions for me? Anything else you want me to explore? Anything that I brought up that makes you want to ask a question, or just like a regular personal question you just want to ask?
Yeah, no, I am in a transition period. I think a lot of people say that, but I either need to keep moving forward in this direction that I've been working on, or I'm done. Like I'm retiring, because this past year has been extremely difficult. I feel like sometimes when you're working towards big goals, whether it's yourself or the universe is putting those stoppages in front of you,
Yeah.
questioning like, are you sure? Do you really want this? And you're going through a difficult period.
Yes.
And I almost am at a point where I'm not sure now, because it has been very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Making a future, even if it's manifesting, right? There's work to be done. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just something that comes in. People think, oh, I'll just manifest it and it'll just show up, right? Does that happen? Yes. Does that happen all the time? No. Can it happen? Absolutely. Can things change on a dime? Absolutely. One of the people I'm studying under right now is a woman named Melanie Warner. And she says the only time that you aren't successful is when you quit.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the other question of, what is your value? What are your values? And what are the things that are lining up for you? And I feel like I'm seeing a timeline in front of me. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like you looked at the universe and said, by this time, this has to happen. And if this doesn't happen, then I bail.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I feel like the universe is saying, well, I'll be honest. I'm just going to say this. That is like good business principles, right? There's good business. My financial guy is like, what is the stop line? Like, when do we stop doing this? When do we stop pouring money in without more money coming? Right? And that's a legitimate question. Totally
Right.
legitimate question to be asking.
Right.
The other question is, how hungry are you?
Mm-hmm.
And how passionate are you? Is Empower Her Money really something that lights you up and makes you feel exuberant and overwhelmed and passionate and like, this can't stop? I can't stop this. And if I can't stop this, how do I do this in a way that's sustainable? So how do
Mm-hmm.
I shift it in a way that makes it sustainable until it takes off? Because in all honesty, these things, they take time. It takes time to take off. And you need the right connections. Like, let's just be honest. You need the universe to kind of come in and like put this person right in front of you, which then leads to this person, that leads to this person, that leads to this moment, that leads to that door, right? Like, you need sort of all of that to come together. And the universe, sometimes the person who's supposed to be there at the coffee shop got stuck in traffic that day, right? Like, um and I do see you feeling a little like Fred Flintstone, where you're in the car and
Mm-hmm.
your feet are going really fast, but the car isn't moving, right? That you've
Mm-hmm.
been putting in a ton of energy and you're just like, this is not panning out the way that I wanted it to pan out.
Yeah.
Can can you do both? Is there a way that you can make Empower Her Money a thing while doing something else on the side?
Hmm.
Does it have to be all or nothing? Can it be, this is my passion and I'm going to have it as a passion project and give it 5 to 10 hours a week because I love it and it's
Hmm.
important and there's vitality here and this makes me feel alive, but going to work for that person doesn't make me feel the same way. And so I'm going to go do what I have to do for my family, for my finances, for my house, for whatever it is that we do. And then I'm going to like transition, like, right? Like, and continue to give it, maybe not give it all the time and energy and attention it has been having, but not drop it completely. Like, is there a gray line in between? Because for me personally, this is Kim Beam, not necessarily Kim Beam the intuitive, but for me, Kim Beam, I'm like, if you're not doing the thing that makes you feel alive, then you're missing out
Hmm.
and you're not living in your purpose. And living in your purpose is the most important thing.
Hmm.
And so how do you make it so you're living authentically in your purpose and creating your vision while at the same time being realistic and like paying for groceries because they're super expensive right
Very true.
now. Right? Like the amount of money I spend on groceries every week is a little ridiculous and I live by myself.
Same.
Okay. Does this help?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes you just need someone from the outside who doesn't know what you're going through or know you to say some words that kind of trigger.
Yeah. I also really feel like, I mean, I kind of want to send it to you. I really feel like Ask and It Is Given might be the book that you should just sit down with.
Okay.
And if you haven't read it, Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, and do what they say in there. There's a bunch of really fun, silly practices in that book. One of them is get an old checkbook. And if you don't have an old checkbook, grab a check and just make multiple, multiple, multiple copies of it. And then grab a notebook and give yourself an amount of money daily, like a pretend amount of money daily. And so you like, I don't know. I said $1,000 a day. If I was going to do it now, towards the end, I was like, this is ridiculous. I'll just give myself $1,000,000 a day. Like, what does it matter? Like, I'll just give myself $1,000,000 a day. And then it became silly. I was like, this is ridiculous practice. But like, while it's still like fresh for you, and $1,000 feels like a lot of money, right? Be like, give yourself $1,000 a day, and then what do you pay off? And so then I would write a check. I would wait 8 days or 9 days, and then I wrote off my student loans. I wrote a check for my student loans, which by the way got forgiven. So, right, like, or which don't even get me into interest in how much I actually had in student loans versus what I actually had to pay off versus what got forgiven and like how much did I pay it off? I probably paid it off already before because of the interest was so high. Like, don't even get me started. Like, I didn't necessarily get, all I got forgiven at that point probably was interest, right? Like, for the people who are out there who are hating on student loan forgiveness, please know I probably paid it off twice given the amount of money I paid to my student loans before it got forgiven.
Yeah.
So student loan, I paid off student loans. My dad was sick. I paid for his health care. I paid for a private chef to come in, right? And I wrote checks to these people. Like, I took the photocopied checks. I took the checkbook from an old checking account, and I wrote checks out. And Esther and Jerry Hicks says that there is an act of writing out the check that your body doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know the difference between make believe, like that you're make believing writing the check and that you're writing the check. Your body actually feels like that money is present. So even though you're writing a check that you're never going to send, you are like in your head, your subconscious is like, oh, that's paid off. And it creates a release of like, oh, this tension. Oh, well, we paid it off. Even though you haven't, your body reacts like you have.
I like that.
And so there are a lot of practices. There are a lot of, not all of them I did, but there are a lot of practices in there. And I was like, I took the ones that were like the most practical and I put them in place and I created the miracle I was looking for.
Very
And
nice.
so I just encourage you to find ways to do that for yourself, even as you're doing it for other people.
Nice. Kim, how can I help you?
All right, thank you so much for being here, Angela. I totally appreciate you, and I will answer that question offline.
Okay.
Let me finish this.